And so we get down there. I go to this treatment facility. It's inpatient. They're like, well, I need you to empty all your pockets and all your stuff. And I'm like, oh shit, what do I have in my pockets? I got dope in my pockets because I used to sell these little things. I was like, oh,
it's like a Mary Poppins bag of
am I gonna be in trouble? Yeah, it's Mary Poppins because I would be pop out, you know.
Welcome to Recoverycast, where we share authentic stories from influential voices about the joys of life in mental health and addiction recovery, and the journeys that led us here.
We tell our stories because we don't heal in isolation.
I'm Brittany Baynard.
And I'm Tom Farley.
Today we welcome Kristina Padilla, an Indigenous queer leader and fierce advocate for recovery, mental health, and the LGBTQIA2+ communities. Their interview was nothing short of prolific, filled with truth, power, and deep compassion. As a speaker, educator, and PhD student, Kristina shares their journey with raw honesty, creating space for others to feel seen and empowered. Through their work, they challenge systems, uplift marginalized voices, and inspire change rooted in inclusion and healing. This is a conversation about identity, resilience, and the freedom that comes from fully owning your story. Let's get into it.
Well, thank you all to being here at Recoverycast. I'm Tom Farley and my lovely co-host, Brittany Baynard. Thrilled to have Kristina Padilla as our guest today. I've been a fan for a long time.
Been glowing about you since.
Yeah, when I saw that we're thinking about having this person, like, no, not like seriously, like this is now I feel like I'm legit. Like I got some real. So welcome. There's so much. We need I think 3 podcasts, to really
Yeah, right. Keep it going.
So much going on.
Yes.
So welcome to Recoverycast, brought to you by Recovery.com, and let's kind of get right into it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Take us back, set the scene, paint a picture, all that kind of stuff. Like, where did your addiction and drugs use begin?
So going back, let's see, I'm 46 years old, so we're going to go way back. How far are we going back? Way back.
Way back.
So I would say as a teen, or I would even go further back than that, to my early childhood. I know my father was an alcoholic, really didn't know that till I grew up a little bit older. I didn't know what that looked like. Yeah. All I know is he would come pick me up, and in between his legs, he'd have his Coors beer. And I used to live in Tucson, Arizona. And I just still to this day, at 46 years old, I hate the smell of beer. And I never wondered why or what that whole thing was, but that was my first interfacing with any kind of drugs or alcohol of smell.
Interesting.
That's a sense. Yeah. It just locks in.
Well, definitely. Yeah. So doing and being so small, I think I was in 3rd or 2nd grade for the most part. So fast forwarding past that, as we'll jump into teenage years, not only with drugs, sometimes other things come, which I got involved with gangs as well too. So in the midst of it, I got bored. My mom and dad worked a 9 to 5. And then even then, so they had a paper route. So they were busy. They were busy little bees, right? And it wasn't that I came from a bad family, my upbringing, because for me, I had, I had nothing what I have today. Nothing at all. The stuff that I haven't obtained is, and we'll get into that a little bit later, I'm imagining, but we were poor. I would go over there and be in the cheese line at church, and, we had fruits and vegetables and what we needed, right? So in doing so, my mom and dad always worked. They were hard workers. My dad was, into mechanics. My mom was into working for the schools and accounting and all that other stuff. But what happened is because they were trying to provide for 3 kids, me, my sister, and my brother, I am the rainbow sheep of the family. And I was the youngest at the time. I got bored.
Wow.
And so what happened is nobody had any time for little Kristina. And so little Kristina found belonging in gangs, found belonging in drugs. And how that happened, and my first experience was in the midst of being in gangs, is we had pulled over one day, and I was hanging out with some girls from the West Side, and they said, hey, you want to try this? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to try this. What is that? Pulled out a CD, and that was my first introduction to cocaine.
How old were you?
Oh man, I probably was about 14 years old. And I tell you, I was excited because not only was it being introduced to me, but it was like part of the gangs were introduced. And this was just like, wow, this is interesting. I've seen this on TV. I've seen this, and now I get a chance to do it. I didn't even know they rolled up a little dollar bill. They did the whole little situation. And I don't know why it was always dollar bills. Nobody wanted to mess with the $5, mess up a $20. I guess that what is was so cocaine, right? Anyways, long story short, for that piece, I tried my first line, and I just remember my whole face going numb. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like this,
Okay, so like you have that experience, your face is numb, like, I don't know if I like that, but something happened where you continued to keep on doing it.
Yeah. Well, no, what happened is then they introduced crank to me.
Oh.
And I became to be, I left cocaine alone, which wasn't even a big, once I tried it, it wasn't my jam. So then I ended up getting into, one of my homeboys said, hey, we've got this other stuff. Since you don't like cocaine, you want to try this? Oh, sure. So there I went trying that piece. And I first did it through my nose. And then I was like, oh, I don't like how this feels. And so I ended up smoking it instead. And after that, I found the love for the drug. It was there for me whenever I needed it, especially getting high on different occasions around people. I sometimes just didn't like the part of being so nervous and then not being able, my teeth hurting the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the beginning. And that was when I was 14.
We think that this is our identity as a family, and it could be a wonderful identity, but what we forget is that everyone has their own kind of voice, and we overlook that. And that person is not getting what they need from the family. So
it's like Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. We look at psychology and how important that is. The need, the want, the food, do you have all those things? And sometimes you don't. So people then fiend for that. Yeah, because my brother, he was like weed, right?
Okay.
And in his guitar, because he was in a band. And then my sister was into boys. And I hadn't really resonated all that because I was still dealing with my own sexuality and where I was with that. Mm-hmm. And then my family worked night and day all the time to, give ends meet, which, they had time for us. They were good to us. But the only problem is they weren't, for my mom and dad, that I got bored and nobody was there.
Yeah, there's certain needs that weren't being said. Because earlier you're like, those drugs, they were always there for me. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that was filling something else wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you did have a good relationship with your family.
I did.
Yeah.
Was there something I
think it's the part of knowing being there. So I got into everything I could. Drugs, alcohol, gangs, mainly the gangs ruled my world. And, unfortunately, selling, driving, collecting, all of that stuff came and took a toll on my life as well, too, in the midst of it. And that fulfilled, along with drug use, a part of me that was missing.
I feel like that had to have kind of been those relationships that you were really looking for to kind of fill that void. How long were you in a gang?
Well, you don't really get out of a gang.
Yeah.
Sometimes or you walk away with stripes, or it's just kind of like, hey, you know what? You did your time, or you're leaving with respect, and not necessarily you leave. Some people get killed to get out of a gang, or you can,
right.
Depending on, there's cartels, there's mafias. I mean, it wasn't that deep that I was in that deep, but could have been.
I remember telling myself when I would go into bars, like, these are my people. Like I am so at home. And now, like, in recovery, I'm like, it wasn't real. Does that happen in like gangs? I'm curious. Is like,
well, depending on what gang you become, because there's lighter gangs as there's like one that there's ones all the way up to mafia and, the cartels where they kill people for blood in and blood out. Mm-hmm. And there's other things that you need to do or get jumped in. I was jumped into a gang because I want to make sure that you take a beating and not going to leave. Mm-hmm. So my initiation was different, and so with that, I felt a belonging, and I longed to belong to something for some odd reason, probably because my family in the midst of it came drugs, alcohol, drinking, all of that stuff. But as far as my people, I worked in a prison for like 8 years with long-term and lifers. I just felt like, oh my goodness, thank you, God, that I'm able to go ahead and work in here instead of being here. Because I knew I would be up in there, but I got a change of life to be able to like, all right, Creator, thank you. I'm doing your work. I'm out here doing this. And there was some, a lot going on that way too later in life, because in the middle, I wanted to go to prison. Take me. I wanted to be a leader, but now I get to be a leader out here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I wanted to do all that. Put me in the mafia and the cartels. I want to go, and then, it goes back to what you're saying, like thinking of like, well, those are my people. But the thing is, when you get locked up, and I saw it, where's your letters? Where's your homies? Where's your people? people turn against each other,
Right.
state's evidence, all that stuff on each other. I saw that while I was in there working with some of the folks that, were substance use recovery. But I mean, for me, it just blows my mind, the prison system as well too.
I want to know where you're from. And to preface it, like, I relate to a lot of what you're saying. Like, I dabbled with stuff because I was bored, but I grew up in McFarland, Wisconsin. Like, I didn't have access, or there just weren't gangs around me.
Yeah.
So we did stupid stuff, but there just wasn't access to the level of like danger around me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that kids weren't like doing it wasn't CDs driving around, plates.
Yeah.
Like, what was the environment that you were in? Where are you from? Like, how did that kind of affect?
So I grew up and I was born in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
So from there, I ended up my family moved over to California. And that's the environment. I remember the environment in Tucson, Arizona. My family was going through divorce. There was a lot of stuff happening and my parents had split. I was the youngest. It's like a lot happening. I was trying to feed people off the street that were going to school with me because they didn't have no food. That's how I knew I was going to be a giver, giving too much out these days. But anyway, as far as growing up, I grew up in San Mateo. So San Mateo, California was the area. I also grew up in Redwood City, a little bit of San Bruno, but basically inside the Bay Area, right? And inside the Bay Area is a multitude of different Black, brown, white, you name it. It's a mix of folks, So when I was in Redwood City, it was predominantly Hispanic, Latin, Latino, and then San Mateo was mixed, for that part. So the environment, depending on where I was at, whether, there's bad areas or rural areas in certain places. And I would find those places and be in those areas and run around crazy.
How you can sniff it out?
Yeah. I want to go with the
Put
action.
me somewhere nice.
Yeah.
Go with the homies and find out, be in brawls and different stuff at nighttime.
I want to do hood rat shit with my friends.
Yeah. So you want to talk about disruptor in the bad ways, and fighting with, gangs and stuff. But I mean, that wasn't my whole life, but that was a period of my life. That was a quarter of my life and interfacing with drugs and alcohol. I think for me, growing up in that area, was good for me as far as high school, doing all that other stuff. But I also, went to juvenile hall in the midst of it. And I found and learned and met more gang members inside of juvenile hall. Then from there, met more people and got, different stuff. So found out different dope dealers, found out more drugs and alcohol, like more partying. And when I got out of juvenile hall. So San Mateo was basically where I grew up in the Bay Area. So Bay Area, I'd say Bay Area.
Yeah. Another is just like, being around you, your personality is amazing. Like you just seem like somebody that does want to lead, wants to do that and help people. Which is why I was like, what was available to you then?
Well, you know what? I led a gang. I recruited from different, what is it called? Cities. So not only San Mateo, Redwood City, different places. And I'd go and I would talk to the girls about the gang. And basically, I was already a business development rep and a CEO and cold calls. Yeah. But what and it's funny because all these particular things had set me up for who I am today. I wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
That side of the coin is amazing to me. Like you talk about this connection. I'm in a gang and I feel like all those connections. But if you ever see somebody that's come out of that environment, and like I was just talking about my drinking experience, and now in recovery, I'm past that too, and it's different. And
I thank God for it. You know what? That I'm still
you have
here.
to have. Absolutely.
I was like, my Creator, thank you, Jesus, that you had me come and do something else. And I'm very spiritual, but I'm also, mixed with religion as well too. But yes, I saw people get out of gangs, or shall I say, drop out of gangs, work with gang members, all of that stuff, and just very happy to see that they moved and shift in good directions, because that's really what it is. All these folks selling all this dope that's out there, and anybody listening that wants to get out of gangs or get out of selling stuff, I mean, you could use those skills for business skills. There's a way that it transports to different stuff of what you do and how you do it, and that's what I did. I mixed it all up and, but yes, I think that getting back to your point about, seeing people transition, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful because they find their power.
Yeah,
Take it back.
And one of my messages that I always say is really not to those, it's to everyone else. It's like, you need to be aware, like these people are walking among us that you wrote off, that they wrote themselves off, and now they're doing this amazing stuff. You need to see that. You need
Yes, we do.
You need to see this transformation, and maybe some of your opinions or stigmas will start to fall away.
100%. I think a lot of times people look at addicts and alcoholics and any other kind of addiction. They think about somebody with heroin needles in their arms, or when it could be medical doctors that are popping pills and nobody's seen that, or your middle or your rich class. I think people have the wrong of what society shows them. It's classic conditioning. Like, when we talk about Pablo's dog, you ring the little bell and stuff, they see this, or they just have this thought process that, oh my goodness, when we think about an addict or a person going back to use, there's this terrible person, you know what I mean? But that person's a mother, a father, a person that has kids, that's somebody's kid.
No one wants this for themselves.
Yeah.
No one would ever want
Exactly.
Yep.
So what was that point? Tell me about, what was that aha moment? When did you what was the turning point?
The turning point was an overdose. I had done a run and drove out to the East Bay. It was like some party. We're dropping off a whole bunch of cocaine. The guy took me upstairs, took advantage of me, raped me. And then I ended up staying up there. I was high. I could barely defend myself because of the fact that I was so high. And then moving from there, I go home. And I still had a couple kilos of cocaine, crank, or whatever. And anyways, I parked in the wrong damn zone, right? Where it says do not park. Because I'm beside my freaking self. And I had borrowed my mom's car. That's one hell of a, to go do this run.
If you're going to go big.
I was like, absolutely. Oh shit, and I was like,
make it a story.
I was like, man, I need to get this money, right? So I went to this, I got taken advantage. I made this run. I was over high, and this guy took advantage of me, and I came back, and it was a different guy from a different neighborhood. And I get back, and I park the car, and I come out the next morning because I finally go to sleep. I get up, and the car's gone. And so hear me out on this, right? The car's gone, and I'm thinking these people are going to come get me because I've got kilos of cocaine and crank in the back of my car. They're going to think I pinpointed this thing. Long story short, I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, the car got towed and I need it right now. What do you have something? Yeah, I got something in it, but I need it, So anyways, I get there and I have scratches and hickeys that you could tell that were all messed up, all through my neck. But in the midst of all that stuff, I still go back out, right? Anyways, I end up searching and I was like, oh my goodness, where is this car? You know what I mean? Trying to get it out myself. Well, I'm exhausted now. So I go into my house. And it's 2:00 in the morning, and my mom's waiting for me right when I walk out the door. You know how that feels, right? When you're like, oh, snap, crackle, and pop. I'm going to go ahead and try to act normal, walk through the door. Nobody's going to know I'm high again,
And their POV is just
And I'm like, let me just go. And milk was my thing, to go to get milk and drink it. It settled my stomach and go to bed, right? Well, I go to get my milk, and I don't know. I was a mess. I'd been up forever. I was just sick. And what happens is I get my drink, I come back out for my milk, and my mom's in the sitting down on the sofa, and all I remember is blacking out, milk splashes, you know what I mean? And then I'm on the ground, but of course I'm out of it now. I wake up to a whole bunch of paramedics around me, and they're like, you know where you at? You know where you are? No, I don't know where I'm at. You know what I mean? I just woke up, and there's all the fire department, the paramedics, everything. And anyways, I ended up overdosing. They took me into the hospital. They realized the scratches and bruises all over my body. They said, did something else happen? I said, yeah, this guy raped me, but I don't want to give you their name. I'm wrapped in a whole bunch of different stuff, and I don't want this to come back to me.
Oh.
They kept me there, and they said, well, you're lucky that, if you would have had anything more or whatever, you could have been a vegetable if you would have took too much more. And I was like, oh my God. But did that resonate with me?
No, of course not.
Of course it didn't. We still got to go out there. But at the time, I was all beat up and busted and broke, so to speak. And to me, I was like, oh yeah, this has got to come to an end. But it didn't. But then the next part of it, when you said my aha moment, that was the first part to go ahead and move the needle. I needed that to move the needle. Then the one that finally did it is that I had been in a relationship with a girl. It was my first relationship with the same sex, and nobody knew. It was on the down low. Anyways, long story short, she was very violent and abused me and would try to always beat me up and do all kind of stuff to me. And mind you, we're from different barrios, meaning that we're from the same set, but there was San Mateo and Redwood City. Long story short to that piece, is that she would get high, violent, and want to just make me a punching bag, right? And so one night, I would not let her disrespect me in front of people, but when we were alone, then it'd be on and cracking. You know, she would always initiate.
Did other people know this was happening?
No. And so I would go home and my mom would be like, you know, thinking I got into it with other rival gang members. So my mom would have all this ice because she would have it anyways, because I would come back, you know, I'd fight with the guys.
Yeah.
You know, we'd get into big old brawls, you know, and bats and rocks and swinging and bottles and all that stuff. So my mom had this. And so the last part of it is the last time I was like, this is fucking it. Okay. This girl is like beating me up. I'm on the floor. She goes and stabs me with a screwdriver. Okay. And she says, yeah, the reason why I do it is because her mom was beaten by her dad. And the dad showed her love by beating her. Yep. I said, well, I ain't the one. Nope. So she beats me up and I'm so, because I ain't no punk, but I'm exhausted. I've been up for like 3 or 4 days, right? Mm-hmm. She stabs me with a screwdriver and then she throws a 40 at me because she would drink 40s. A bottle breaks. And then I end up escaping out of the house. And then she trips me on my way out and I smack my face down on the thing. Let me tell you, I lived 2 blocks away. So I was able to get to my house and my aunt was visiting at the time. I remember walking in and my mom's like, oh my God. How can I show up to this house? What else can I do to show up to my house? Now I'm all beat up.
She thought it was a gang, but she thought it wasn't.
That's what I said.
40
and that's what I said. I said, oh, I got into it, you know, whatever. But she was just like, she started to get the hint that that wasn't it. So then finally, my aunt left. I woke up the next day and I said, you know what, Mom? If you take me right now, I'll go. You got to take me right now. I'm done. Like, you take me right now, you know, and it had been a struggle for them. They had been trying to find beds and there wasn't beds available. And it was a freaking mess of trying to go and when I was going to go, you know, of what they had to do to get me there because I was 8, you know, once you turn 18, that's up to you. So it was hard for them to be like, hey, Kristina, you know, and I felt bad because they had bring me little Elmo blankets and stuff, but I just wouldn't stop. I was like addicted to the streets and the gangs. And, you know, I had this girlfriend that was beating me up and I thought that was love. And I'm like, yeah, it's not love. Far from that. But I didn't know that. Yeah. It was small.
Yeah. And I saw when you said 18, I'm like, still so young at this point. You are still so young at this point. What? And your mom and your mom sounds so supportive.
She was.
Supportive, but also it's got to be hard as a parent in that you're not trying to support your kid, but you're trying to be there for them.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. What is your relationship like with your parents during this? And also like relationships, like.
So my relationships, my sister and my mom would always team up and, you know, they would make sure I was alive when I came home. Yeah. You know, they'd make sure they'd open the door. I had a little dog. Yeah, we all lived together in Redwood City at the time. And my dad was kind of distant. He was a mechanic. My brother lived in the back. It sounds like the backyard, but in the garage. They had made
He had his band.
He had his band, so he liked his space. Yeah. And then so it was mainly my sister, but mainly my mom. My mom was my freaking rock. Like she always was diehard to be like, you know, even though she knew what I was going through, I was even on the news. It got so bad. Even like it was deep. It was deep of like some of the stuff and that I did and what we did. And so my relationship, I don't even think I had a relationship, but the one-way relationship. And I didn't even know of just like, Mom, I need more money. And she probably knew what it was, but she just, I don't know. I mean, she was a mother that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I went missing for like 7 days and when I say missing, it was a streak of being on dope for so long. Yeah. And then I was afraid to come home. So then she went and looked for me. Oh. And then she saw me running and I jumped over a fence, but I ran because I was afraid. You know?
What were you afraid of?
I was just afraid to face her, to be like, I fucked up. You know, I'm on fucking drugs and my girlfriend at the time, we had been out for like 7 days, but she's just come home and she hugged me. So I just, well, anyway, she grabbed me. My dad pulled over in this big old, it looked like a milk truck, white truck. And I still remember the day my mom grabbed me by my thing or whatever and says, just come home. And I'm like, man, I feel so fucked up. And even to this day of wanting to repent or like to be like, hey, what can I do or repay of what I did. And the best thing is to be who I am right now.
Sure.
And be that person every single day. Like they are the moms. That is like unconditional love.
Yeah, because they thought I could be dead. I could have overdosed. I've overdosed quite many times throughout my drug career.
Yeah. You say, take me right now. Did you come to that? I'm like, were you talking to people? Like it's
No.
so rare to like
No.
on your own come to that. Like a lot of times
mom, and I don't have any of the education that I do.
I was going to say, what was your idea of treatment then too?
I had no idea what treatment was. I have nothing at all. All I know is that there's a rehab is what they would call it.
Yep.
And my mom had they try to talk to me every now and then about like, hey, you know, you want to go, you know, this is, they would show me and I'm like, no. Like, no, I'm not ready. You know, I'm not ready to give all this up.
So let's now we're in the rehab stage.
Yes.
Like you're talking.
Shit.
No, here we go. Like tell it.
So now I'm in.
I want to hear day one.
Now you're there.
So day one. Oh my God.
Take us there.
I'm still loaded and coming down, detoxing because they didn't have. I don't even think they even knew it was back the day, right? So I got 23, but then I went back out. I'll talk about that later. But I get in the milk truck. Right? The white milk truck my dad has, and I loved it so much. It was a Chevrolet. I don't even know. Anyway, I get in there. I tell my mom, take me right now. And let me tell you, she got her stuff when we were out.
Love that.
We were out. And then
she had a go bag.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was time to go. And so we get down there. I go to this treatment facility. It's inpatient. It's called Casa Maria. They had called and everything. I was so gone. I don't even know. All I know I was in the truck and I said, take me right now. Let's go.
It's amazing.
We end up getting down there and then I get there and they're like, oh, well, welcome to Casa Maria. And I was like, oh, great. Here we go. And so my mom and dad walked me in there and my dad starts breaking down and my mom's just like, here she is, you know, as I had pronouns of she and her before. Now they're they, them. Here she is, you know. And so they do the intake and they're telling me, you know, and I don't know what the hell I'm saying because I'm still detoxing. My sexuality wasn't out yet. So they're like, do you have a partner? Do you have domestic violence? I said, yes, and yes to all of that stuff.
It's just a lot coming out in the,
Yeah. And so this person, I said, this person's a stalker because she stalked. I didn't say she, I said this person. I would always say this person.
Oh, okay.
Partner.
So
I wasn't out this shit about that.
Yeah.
And so when I was up there, my first day, they said, well, hey, you know what? We do have a bed for you. I can remember this part because the rest is kind of blurred out. There's a bed for you. So we need to have your willingness that you're going to stay. And I was like, yeah. Yeah. They're like, well, I need you to empty all your pockets and all your stuff. And I'm like,
that's always a fun.
I was like, oh shit, what do I have in my pockets? You know, I got dope in my pockets because I used to sell these little things. I was like, oh,
like a Mary Poppins bag.
Am I gonna be in trouble? Yeah, Mary Poppins because I would be pop out, you know.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, all right, let me give him my stuff. And then this back in the day when we had pagers, you know what I'm saying? So I had like two pagers. Wow. I had like 2 pagers and who knows what else.
Pagers.
And so my mom's like, gave me a hug and told me she loved me and she walked out of the door while they were still doing the thing and whatever.
Stop
and
crying.
my dad stayed in the hallway.
Oh, really?
And so I get done with the assessment or whatever you want to call it. I don't remember, but I walk out there. My dad says, do you want me to call anyone for you? Do you know, what is my dad? You know, he's on, because he was worried. And my mom just couldn't see me. It was done. My mom they probably told her just walk, go. And my dad's got a big heart. And he was just like, you need me? And I said, no, Dad, no, it's okay. I'm in the best place that I need to be. I said something to the fact of like, I'm tired. I'm tired and I need a nap. I just remember being very tired. And then the woman came up to me and says, hey, a little bit later, we're going to have a graduation ceremony at nighttime. And if you're up for it, you could come to it. And I got excited about that. But I was still detoxing. I felt like shit.
Can't join virtually at that time either.
No, none of that stuff. None of that stuff.
I think that's kind of cool. That's amazing. I mean, maybe not in like the state you were in day one, but like to have someone go into their first day of treatment and be like, do you want to see a group of people that are graduating today?
Oh, yeah. And it was deep because I still felt the crank going through my veins when I was dancing like banda and Mexican music. It was like all like Caucasian and Latino mixed and one African-American person inside an all women's facility. Like a woman's like treatment home. It was a home.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about treatment. I had no idea about anything. All I know is that, hey, you go to this place and you talk about your feelings and there's no dope around. That's all I heard. And I'm away from, this is what the turning point is. I was tired about being fucking beat on by the girlfriend I was with. And I wanted to be away. She lived 2 blocks away from me. And I was tired of being beat on. I was tired, just all of it. The hospital stay, the rape, all that. I was like, let's go. And that was my final. But like I said, it pushed the needle. It wasn't just one. It had to have been to the part I woke up and said, fuck this. My teeth hurt. It's time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go in because like, I'm tired. Like I've been there too. But like, but at some point you've got to like it changes you. Did you get that right away? Some people
I didn't. At first, I missed my gang. I missed my girlfriend at the time, even though besides the fact that she'd beat me up all the time, I missed the excitement more than the gang. I missed that dopamine. I missed the serotonin that wasn't anymore. And me sitting in these groups, listening to people, and I was detoxing. So I felt like shit. And I think, it took me a minute to finally, because it usually says psychologically 28 to, it takes longer than that. But anyways, to finally start detoxing, getting your mind right and stuff like that. But I actually enjoyed the groups. I really enjoyed the groups when I got there. And I'm like, this is cool. I've never had this before. And then, of course, I got my attention because, of course, these were all women. Yeah. Nobody knew my sexuality at the time, but it was on and cracking over there. I was I'm in heaven, baby. Oh, my God, am I going to be able to? Which got me in trouble later because I got into a relationship with a girl and then she went back out and it was all bad. Yeah. And then that was part 2. I went out again, but then I got back on track with outpatient. And then from 23 years on, have been clean.
Okay. So did you did a step down?
No, they pulled me out of the program because of the fact they kicked me out because I got in a relationship with a girl and they kept the other girl there because she was from prison and she was on parole, whatever. I don't know. Hers was more than mine, I guess. So anyways, they kicked me out, which now would be like patient abandonment. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, what's up? Just left me there.
Did they find you another place or literally just leave?
They just said, you know what? We understand you're in a relationship with another girl and you have to go. That was it. And I couldn't talk to anybody. They said, go pack your stuff. And so I had to go upstairs, pack my stuff, crying hysterically. And then I think the worst part is when I called my mom on the way home and there was this guy named Pedro that drove me home. And I was like, Mom, they kicked me out because of, her name was Isabel, because they found out I was seeing Isabel. And I was just devastated. And I know they were devastated because they're probably like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Oh. I had this structure. I actually, even though that I was seeing this girl in the program, I was doing well.
I was just going to say,
so they could have done so much different to me of like, hey, well, we see this. Is there another house available? Hey, you messed up. It's kind of like when somebody relapses or returns to use and's like, oh, we're just going to kick them out. Then that's what they fucking do. We fuck up, we mess up and we use. So what are we going to, because that's what they're doing. Just like a sex addict goes and has sex or a gambler gambles. That's where they're in their prime of what they're doing. Let's talk about that. What's making you do that? And what's happening around that and why did, all that other stuff. Anyways, I didn't know all that then. So they kicked me out of the program. They drove me all the way home. I was crying all the way home.
Where were you at in your treatment journey?
Almost a year.
Oh my goodness.
Almost a year. Yeah. Almost a year. Wow. And so, and
did they give you any all right, we're kicking you out because of whatever, but here's what you should do. Here's something. Yeah.
They said,
I knew that answer.
Pack your bags.
And that's
it. We're taking you home and we'll give you the phone to call your mom or where are we taking you?
Yeah.
And I was like, to my mom's house. That's where we're going. And everybody was crying. The whole house was devastated. It disrupted everything. Yeah. Let's talk about this. What's happening? If we needed to be separated or whatever it needed to be, it could have been handled a different way. Yeah. So she ends up leaving the program and coming to see me and stay with me, but becomes an active alcoholic while she's staying with me. So I return to use in the midst of it all. And then we break up. I go to outpatient and I found therapy. I found counseling. I found all kind of different stuff. But, in the midst of when we take away some of our substance use, our mental health shows up.
Yeah. Because you're like, why was I doing this stuff in the first place?
Yeah, with a lot of anxiety, and currently my diagnosis is generalized anxiety disorder and gender dysphoria. So the mix of that part, was kind of mixed up. And, I know that there's not a lot of studies, but being that I was young and did so much drugs, I think that affects our brain.
Yeah.
Right?
All this stuff happens.
I blame the drugs.
All this stuff happens before people's frontal cortex are developed. It's all happening before we're 25.
I was young. I started drugs at 14 years old. Some people even started younger.
Yeah.
Way younger, And so looking back, it's just like, I'm happy that my mom pushed, even though, you know what I'm saying? And my sister, because I wouldn't be alive. And the treatment facility that I went to, their thing was all messed up. If I could go back, they'd probably be in violation of everything.
Yeah.
They even took food, from the people. We would go ahead and apply for. I mean, it's crazy. There's unethical people out there. There's bad actors out there that are in these spaces for treatment, outpatient, detox to get money. and then they're taking the patient's food or, because there's extra stuff and, that's some of it government money. What if they're on, you know what I mean? Or if it's private pay, that's still their money or their Cheerios or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did learn how to cook while I was there a little bit.
Hey.
So that was cool.
This podcast is brought to you by Recovery.com. It's a place where anyone can find mental health or addiction treatment options specific to them. You can filter by location, price, insurance coverage, therapy type, mental health condition, levels of care, and so much more. Recovery.com is the place to find mental health or addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere. What made you find sobriety or whatever you want to call it, recovery? Like, what was the thing? Like that was it that you like started to feel your authentic self? Is it was obviously,
One of the things is when I was in the program, they had me go to an AA meeting, and I was in there for NA. Let's just keep it real, right? But I was like, sure, I drank every now and then and did whatever. It's both for me, really. But I was the NA. But we went to an AA meeting. This is the beginning, and I got introduced to AA. And I was just like, I was trying to get high there. So I got everybody sick. And what happened was, and what I mean sick is we ate a whole bunch of sweet and low because it's white. And then we put like coffee and was just trying to get high off the coffee. Like, who does that? Me and a true addict, right? So I was like, yep, did it. And so I'm over here pouring in these sugar, all kind of stuff just to get high. And I'm all, anybody else want some? And so of course the doers, the other part of the group get in it. So we're drinking this, thinking that we're getting high off of sugar, sweet, low. But I got introduced to AA that day. And so it was a mixed kind of a thing. And so I was like, well, they're talking about stuff and chips. I want a chip. What are they giving?
It's too bad pods weren't around then.
Yeah?
Because I would love to hear a pod story. The detergent pods that
yeah.
Like, where do we come up with these things? Like,
I don't know, because we're out of our minds sometimes. High. Yeah. Toothpaste, anything that goes on the ground, be up in someone's nose, right? Yeah. So that's how I got introduced to AA that way. And because I had a DUI and I got pulled over also too in the courts and I was on probation, I was mandatory. I had to go to those, right? But the groups already did that while I was in there, but I still stayed on probation for years, a couple of years after. And I was made that I had to go, right? NA or AA for I think it was 6 more months before just that part could go. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I liked it so much. I was like, I could go. And my family was like, we'll go with you. And I really liked the component of the steps, and I didn't know no different. I thought that was cool. I liked the community more than anything.
Yeah.
I think the community, and I was super young, and I was introducced to recovery for peers too, that were there.
That sense of belonging that like it hits you. Like, I remember the first time going into a meeting and thinking, oh, the rest of my life with these schmucks, really? These aren't my people. Like, yeah, they are.
I feel like you would walk into a room and be like, let's go. Like, I'm ready to hear yours. You ready to hear mine?
Yeah.
And I liked the speaker meetings out of everything. Yeah. I just was just like, oh my goodness, there's other people like me. I think knowing that part of the other part kind of drew me in, and I'm like, wow.
Other places can be really isolating too. Like you've lived a life, you have experiences, sometimes going into a 9-to-5 job and you're just like, something happens. You're like, gosh, I wish I could tell someone that story of that thing that I did and not feel this judgment, or like I'm having a thought about something. I wish I could like share that thing because it's good and healthy for me. And I feel like that's what NA, that's what AA, that's what outpatient, that's what these groups help provide people, is that like connection. Cause like gangs, that's a camaraderie, that's a lifestyle, that's like something you're bonding with people over. It's more than just like the negative parts. I'm sure there was tons of positive parts too that really, really brought people together. And I feel like those are the group aspects that like draw you into those other group things outside of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Connection.
Yeah.
It's all that connection. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, it's so new and it's so wonderful. They find that sense of belonging, but I think they jump too soon into, I got to help others. I got to do that. And they haven't really got their foundation for it. And that's sad. But yeah, talk to me about your life's work now. Like I can see that you found connection. That's great. That's wonderful. what your life has become and who and not only just like, I'm like dedicated to helping this group. You've got like everything, like it is, you're all over. You connect with so many amazing, you have so many great connections and great, communities. I don't know how to keep track of it all, but
I just keep going.
you just keep going. Yeah.
Yep, that part. Well, surprisingly, even when I was in gangs, like there was a police officer named Randy Bickle. He was amazing. He's like, "Don't you need to go get a boyfriend or something? You've been running these streets like whatever." Little did he know I was gay
You're
as
like,
nobody's
"Meh."
business, right? I like women, and that's another reason why I was like, more drawn into that part. But I would do presentations because probation had me. Once I got out probation, they said, "Would you be interested in speaking to some of the mothers? For them to recognize gangs or what their kid would be like." I said, "Absolutely." So I'd go over there, even though I was a leader, and talk to like probably about, I think at the parole or probation office to about 30 to 50 mothers, and teach them about the different, what that looks like. I'd write graffiti on the wall so they knew these, and I would teach them about what these specific gangs that were in our area are and where I was from. And I was very proud to be that.
Yeah.
And so I knew at a young age that I still wanted to, I was doing presentations long time ago, right? But it was a different presentation. And I was helping mothers a long time ago. But also, on the flip side, I was also recruiting a whole, people. But as far as the things that I do now, I mean, I've always had a passion to want to help people. I'm a healer.
Yeah.
I'm a healer and I'm very intuitive. I am very, what's the other word I'm trying to think of?
Receptive.
Well, there's that too. But I've always wanted to help people. It reminds me of when I was probably like in third grade, where I'm giving out food that we didn't even have, and like oranges and apples to these people, these little kids that didn't have food. I'm like, "You're hungry? You didn't eat? Check it out. Tomorrow I got you an orange in the morning. I can't do much more than that, but I'm gonna give you an orange."
That's an empathetic third grader.
And so I was young, and that was that part of knowing I wanted to help, and I didn't care. I mean, nationality and all that other stuff was out there. I had everybody. I had every rainbow, anything. That our little group, and this little bike, this pink bike that was probably half my size, that I thought it was the shit, okay, that I would ride every single day. And
Bobby's
I'd be like,
World style.
yes, it's old school
I mean,
style.
but that seems like that's such an indigenous kind of cultural, like, I mean, is that what you're leaning into?
Well,
this?
I'm very proud of my culture, but one of the things is I didn't find it till I was older.
Yeah.
As far as being a part and what I was of Western Apache, from Tucson, Arizona, and also Cherokee. And there's another tribe that I'm not familiar with yet. We're trying to track, where that's from. I'm also Aztec, Spanish. I mean, these days, I don't think anyone's just 100% something. There's like a sliver, but I learned my roots at an older age, within the last probably 8 years.
How were you able to explore that? That's really cool.
So first thing I did is I went through Ancestry, but the thing is tribes don't go and you can't have that piece, but you want to track your folks all the way through. And, we sat down with my grandmother and, my grandpa, well, my family did, and they let us know where we're from. But because of the past, a lot of folks had said that they were white, so they didn't get killed. Some folks didn't identify as far as like want to fall underneath government. As far as like the BIA, the Bureau of Indians Affairs, and be like a dog. You got to register like a dog, like enrolled. So I'm a descendant, but not enrolled to a specific tribe. But those are my Western Apache and also Cherokee are my two. And I found that as when I got a little bit older. But I'd already been around it my whole life, and I knew our little turquoise and my mom, and but really getting back to my roots of culture, ceremony, who I am as a two-spirit person, like what does that look like, seeing through the eyes of masculine, feminine spirit, and being a sacred person and being able to pray and have ceremony and do prayers for folks because we're held in high regards, and being able to see the spirit of a masculine and feminine spirit.
Well, in the behavioral health field that we're in, as I said, there's there's so much there.
It's also a lot of generational trauma too, and to be able to connect to any part, I think is like, those are just the steps it takes to help. I don't know where you are at in that journey, but I think it's amazing that you have elders and family members to look to and to ask those questions. I get that feeling of being able to connect now and appreciating it more.
Oh, yeah.
As an adult, like I wish I would have just shut up and listened as a kid, but I don't know if anyone was even trying to teach me those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like as I've had my journey with like my mental health, finding those ways to connect, I feel like has helped me. There was like some part that felt like I don't really know who I am. I felt like a part was taken away in like the grand scheme of things to disconnect, like, I don't know, family trees and stuff. I couldn't tell you anything past 150 years. Like there's reasons for that. Like you said, there's reasons why you can't track. We don't know who in tracking people, that whole concept. It's difficult. And I love that you get to explore this and you're learning more. And anybody that's doing that, I would highly suggest it. It's great for your mental health and just to be able to really tap into your true self and embrace that. I know growing up, I felt a lot of shame for like just the color of my skin, the way I looked because of the environment I was in. And I think that created a lot of like just ongoing stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, once you stop with the substances, once you stop and sit there with yourself, you can like ask myself, why didn't I like myself?
Yeah.
What was I trying to ignore? Why was I trying to do this when like this has been here the whole time to just embrace?
Yeah.
How has that reflected in your advocacy?
Oh man, huge. So anything that has to do with Indigenous, and when we say Indigenous, that's actually an umbrella term. So if I'm saying Native American, I'm speaking straight to Native American. Because Indigenous can also take in Mexico, which I am too, Aztec. You know, my family's from Sinaloa, Mexico too, as well. There's a part too. So my advocacy has been huge because I feel the Native American voice is, you know, they're on reservations, you know, different places. And it's like, okay, you're put here, you know, and then the interface. But I feel like I am what America, the federal government wanted is an educated, well, an Indian that has cut hair, you know, like, you know what I mean? Very educated, you know, that can speak both to the tribes and to the American way, because I'm very Americanized. So I'm exactly what they wanted. But I'm also not supposed to be here either because they were trying to kill us a long time ago. So my lineage goes through a lot of history, you know, back in the day for the most part. But my advocacy is big because I'm a lot of the times I'm the first Native American person, or it could be even, you know, Aztec as well too, to do a lot of the things that I've done. You know, and like I get thanked a lot at when I go and speak some places because they're like, we've never heard a Native American person come and be able to be a part of this conference or speak to us or any of that stuff. And, you know, and I was like, I wish more of the tribes would get out, but you know, it's heavy.
It's hard.
It's heavy.
There's a lot of intergenerational trauma for the
I love that
boarding
you
schools.
Travel around and do that though. I remember like I grew up in a town of 6,000 people. I was the only Black kid in the town. My sister, like biracial, so like she's very like white adjacent. But like I remember having a Black speaker and I tried to hold it in how much I was glowing inside to feel some type of representation and just like feel like, oh my God, like it's a man, but like he's got kind of hair like me and he's successful. And these people around me that I'm afraid of how they view me are seeing somebody that I think they're looking up to. And I can hope that they also associate with me.
Yes. You know, when you said that, it just reminded me, I'm speaking at a conference here. I was the keynote speaker last night. And I had quite a few queer kids, rainbow kids, whatever you want to call, so to speak, as we're taking that name when we say queer back and empowering ourselves. Said, thank you so much for saying what you said about the LGBT community, because a lot of times we don't say anything. And for you to be up there representing, and here's another part, because not only the Indigenous part, but I'm very well out there with the LGBT Two-Spirit, and there's a lot of stuff happening with the administration, not to get political, but trying to erase trans people, LGBT people, which we've been here, we're queer, and we're not going nowhere. It's just, here we are.
You can't erase
Well, you know, I talk a lot.
You can't erase people.
100%. I talk a lot about ensembles, you know, and, you know, build your ensembles and, you know, like you have all these different voices where you have your strengths make it better, but your weaknesses are diminished by everyone else's. Everyone's got your back. And, but the thing is, the best ensembles are the ones where everyone's allowed to bring their otherness into the ensemble. That's
an orchestra full of trumpets would be insane.
To hang out with just the people that are just like you is just. I thought that was my tribe. My tribe. I need to everyone that had lived my environments and experience and had
It's
the same
powerful.
background. I'm like, that's
just
not
makes
my
you feel
tribe.
good for a little bit and comfortable.
Yeah.
But like to grow.
But now when I'm like bringing all these other, like people that bring their otherness to me, and
I love what you say, otherness.
I love that.
Love that.
It's beautiful because we're so like because of fear, we want to other people and push them out. And that makes, you're not comfortable with that. And they certainly aren't comfortable. But when we bring our otherness and
otherness and
this sense of belonging, we find,
Yeah.
And
when you talk about otherness and talk about, it reminds me of people, how they're looking and perceiving us. And I think I live my life such a long people pleasing, making sure I fit in a box, make sure I wore the right stuff, where I'm like, fuck it, this is my life. And if this, if my nail polish, my glitter nail polish, so y'all can't see, but just imagine a disco ball is on my hand.
I've been loving it from here.
Have you? I've got my little, and
I was like,
I need some
glitter.
It's glitter. I need some touch up. You know what I mean? But the thing is to be who you are. I think a lot of us are afraid, and not just in the LGBT community, in every community, to be exactly authentic of who you are, how you want to dress. And I tell people, you had to walk through the door or walk down anywhere, and you wanted to dress the way you really wanted to. What would you look like? What if you took and was like this, instead of saying, oh, I got to go to work, so I got to fit the form, or I've got to go do this, or I'm going to go tonight, but my friends are wearing this and I want to wear that, or I really don't like any of this, but I just put it on and it's just the regular. But what would I be more out? Would I be like, what would I do? Would I have shiny stuff? Would I have doll stuff? Would I make my own clothes? What would that look like?
It's the same with the personality too, like how you hold yourself around groups of people. And that just made me think, like, when you're wearing the thing that you think you're supposed to be wearing to fit in with the group of people, when you're acting a certain way to fit in with the group of people, you get in with that group of people and you're like, I feel like such an outsider right now. That's because you changed everything about yourself and everything that you enjoy and everything that you love and everything that you embrace and makes you dropped it, grabbed something completely different, and now it feels awkward and you still feel like an outsider. I grew up with like the four boys, and so we were these guys, and we did the sports thing and all this kind of stuff. And so I like my son, who has two older sisters, and I'm like, I look at this, like the spectrum, the gender spectrum. And it's like, so I felt like I had to be way over here on this ultra kind of male thing. I look at my son, who gets to be like, because of his sisters, he's so much more empathetic than I was, and so much more like comfortable with who he is, because he doesn't care. But I love that makes you happy to see that in your son too. I'm part's really great, and you're like, I wish I had that. I wish I would have known and embraced that in the moment. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's growth.
It's good for the mental health too, to be able to let people explore their gender and their sexuality as well too.
There's nothing like seeing a healed human.
Oh yeah.
Like and there's nothing like seeing somebody who is totally authentic. Those are two beautiful things.
Absolutely.
Not just healing, but also authenticity is just amazing to me. And also triggering too. It was like, oh man, why did I have to live this life? I'm getting there now. I love where I am now. But and I don't look back with the regret, but I was like, it's taken me a long time.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you all for joining us. And if you'd like to learn more about Kristina Padilla, you can check out the notes in the description and the socials.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful.